Uncertainty persists over Russia-Ukraine peace agreement. The sticking points on territorial concessions and security guarantees remain to be ironed out. Putin wants Donbas and Ukraine wants security guarantees, but what both sides are willing to let go of still remains unknown. Now, according to a report published in the Financial Times, President Trump has laid down conditions for Ukraine in return of security guarantees. Washington is reportedly pushing Zelensky to order complete withdrawal from Donbas. Agreeing to this would mean leaving Donbas in return of protection from future aggression from Russia. The White House, however, has refuted these reports and called them fake. Deputy White House Press Secretary Anna Kelly stepped in to clear the air. Kelly says Washington's only role in Ukraine peace process is to bring both sides together to make a deal. If this is to be believed, then all the conditions that Ukraine has on the table are laid down by Vladimir Putin himself. In that case, Ukraine's withdrawal from Donbas remains inevitable for peace. There seems to be no easy way out, but the longer it takes for both sides to ink the peace agreement, the front lines will be pushed deeper into Ukraine. Russia already controls 500 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory, while Kyiv is demanding $27 billion in weapons aid from Western allies. The odds on the battleground seem to be stacked against Ukrainian president. Piotr Kurzin is a geopolitical and international policy professor from London. Professor Kurzin, thank you very much for your time and welcome to the broadcast. What do you make of this latest stalemate between Russia and Ukraine, with the United States saying that Ukraine has to accept what Russia really wants?
I think, firstly, thank you for having me. Secondly, that it is largely the same of what we've seen before, but also slightly different. It's slightly different in that this is the first trilateral meeting we've had between the three, and that all of them seem to have come out saying constructive or fruitful or productive, those sorts of words. So maybe they're just saying that for the front of house, and behind the scenes it's a lot worse. But it's also reflective of, second, the reality that we're in, which is the great power politics, the use of bigger powers determining things for smaller ones, is very much back here. And Ukraine is in a undeniably difficult situation. It always has been. But clearly Trump wants some kind of constructive relationship with Putin, which is why he invites him to the board of peace, why he continues to engage with him, even though to most people, at least in the West, Russia has been the far more belligerent power, sabotaging the peace talks and not really engaging with constructive interest. Of course, people can argue about the size of Ukraine and whether or not they should just accept this deal as it is. But ultimately, whenever you see a peace agreement or at least a ceasefire established, it always benefits the aggressor. It always benefits the assertive party, the assaulting party. So there is a lot of concern, especially in Europe, of course, given what's been going on with Russia and NATO, that Russia would just pick this up in a few years.
Professor, the three delegation team from the United States, Ukraine and Russia are likely to meet on February 1st, and there is rumor that both Presidents Putin and Zelensky may meet this time around. Do you actually think there's a possibility that these two leaders will meet and have a discussion?
No. I'm pretty categorical on that, because I do not see suddenly why there would be this willingness of the two, especially Putin, to meet. You have to keep in mind, from the Russian perspective, Putin does not see Ukraine as an equal partner. That's why whenever you look at his statements that he makes or who he addresses his references to, it's always to the United States. Only recently has he done it to Europe, and that was because Europe was threatening to seize those foreign assets back in December, which reflects a growing frustration for Putin. But when it comes to Ukraine, he doesn't see Zelensky as an equal. He sees him as a subordinate. Ukraine is but a lesser entity. It's not a state in his mind. And so they may have to meet. Of course they would, otherwise Trump would come down on Russia even harder with sanctions and economic threats, etc. But I find it very unlikely that they're suddenly just going to be in 4 days' time meeting, or whatever, 5 days' time meeting in the Middle East out of the blue. There would be big rumblings from this, from the colleagues in Complex. I have not heard of anything like that. Mm-hmm. And also the last point I'd make is that just simply this reflects a misunderstanding that Trump has, or the US has, the administration has, about how peacemaking works. Trump wants to be seen as a deal maker, but business dealings are not the same as peacemaking. And you can force the two to try to come together. And sure, you can start these trilateral talks, but there's no guarantee that they're going to go anywhere. I think these are different to previous ones that I've said, and there's more prospect, but I'm still very skeptical of how much they're going to deliver, at least right now.
All right, let's see what happens on February 1st, because all eyes will be on that trilateral meeting that will be held between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. But Professor, thank you very much for your time and for talking to us today.
Thank you very much for having me.